Next, we've got a question from Marcus Hurley. Hey, Colton, I've been a fan of your work since the Infinity War days, and it was quite the surprise to see you pop up on ScreenCrush all these years later. I was wondering how you went about joining the ScreenCrush team and what your role at the channel consists of. Thanks for taking my question. All right, well, thank you so much for this question. A little different. I appreciate it. And thank you for being a viewer. For God, what would that be? 20. 7 or 8 years now. Wow. So thank you. Yeah, I can give you a little peek behind the curtain and tell you the story. So my first big breakout video was, I guess you could say, was that video I did about the leaked Avengers Infinity War trailer and talking about what Spider-Man was saying sorry about to Iron Man. And from that point forward, I kind of became one of the go-to channels for Infinity War coverage. Now, that of course didn't last. I was young, I didn't know what I was doing. I was starting college, I was living away from home for the first time, and geez, I was dealing with some health issues and some mental issues, and I missed my family, I missed my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and uh, long story short, I didn't end up going back to school that summer, and I moved back home, and I kept doing my channel, but it just lost its momentum, I guess, after Infinity War, and I was kind of in a slump there for a little while. I ended up getting a job as a security guard at a candy factory, and when I wasn't being a security guard, like when I was off on my off days being a security guard, I was substitute teaching. And I was on and off with YouTube. I did it occasionally. And then when Spider-Man No Way Home was coming out, I kind of got the bug and I was like, you know what? Even if nobody watches this, I have to cover this movie. I just knew I had to do it. So I started making videos about Spider-Man No Way Home, and I covered WandaVision and stuff like that. And I was doing this weekly show, kind of similar to this one. No one was really watching it, but I'm really glad I was doing it because luckily my friend and coworker Harriet, who's the post production manager at ScreenCrush, she found my channel, she found my show, and recommended me to Ryan Arey, who runs ScreenCrush, as a writer. So Ryan reached out to me, and we had a great call, and I started writing for ScreenCrush on occasion. This was also when ScreenCrush was smaller. I don't want to say like it's much smaller. We hadn't reached 1 million subscribers yet, so we weren't small, but we weren't as big as we are now. We're as big as we are now because of me. Just kidding. So anyway, at the time, Ryan was still experimenting with working with freelance writers for the first time at ScreenCrush, really, and it was great. I thought I had achieved the dream. Just occasionally writing for ScreenCrush, getting paid a couple $100 here or there to write about Spider-Man. I thought dream fulfilled. But then that summer of 2022, yeah, 22, I was shit canned at my job at the candy factory. And it was summer, so there were also no subbing jobs. And my wife and I, uh, we were both subs, so we had no work. And we had just got married, and we had just bought our first home. And I was really scared. And we got this weird job where we would take this truck that was loaded full of these big metal frame plywood. I'll put a picture up. Uh, but they're these big, like cattle gate sized panels. And we would take these all over Texas. I'm talking hours and hours of driving. And we were out in 100-degree heat, putting these panels together into like these square boxes that were for construction sites, building houses, and for them to put debris and trash and stuff in on their job. So that was my job. That was my wife and I's job. And at the same time, I was occasionally still, writing for ScreenCrush. And then school started back, so I got some subbing work again. And I ended up pitching a Better Call Saul video that year. And I think it was for the episode where Walter and Jesse were returning. And anyway, Ryan didn't have anyone who could cut the video. So I was like, well, I could cut it, meaning edit it. So I edited that video over the weekend, and I did a really fucking good job. I made sure of it. And I think Ryan was kind of blown away that, oh, this guy can edit really good. And one thing that led to another, and he asked if I wanted to just come work for the channel on a more frequent basis. And of course I did. So for a while, I wrote scripts as a freelancer, and I would edit my own scripts. All the scripts I wrote, I'd send to Ryan, he'd record them, send them back to me, and I'd edit them. I also did thumbnails. Um, I did some brief work for ScreenCrush's sister channel, Comics Alliance, but I've always been more of a movie guy, and Ryan spotted that pretty quick and just, had me do ScreenCrush full time. So then eventually I started writing even more, and I was no longer editing my own stuff because Ryan wanted me, writing more and more scripts, which is fine by me. I much prefer writing to editing video. Eventually, I started popping up on camera in like talkbacks and stuff. And then eventually I got to host a few things on the occasion. And now I'm a full-fledged co-host of the channel. I'm a salary employee at the company. I think my official title is Screen Crush video producer and director of alternate programming. I think is my official title. I write, I host, I do thumbnails. I don't do much editing these days, like I just said. We've got a great team of editors, though, much better than me. So I'm fine not doing that. And it's insane. I have my dream job, my literal dream job. It's the hardest job I've ever had, and it's the best job I've ever had. And I'm sure I'll step in it at some point and get fired one of these days. But until then, I'm just very happy to be there and watch that channel grow and getting to work with Ryan and this great team every day. It's really an honor and a privilege, and I thank Ryan for the opportunity that he gave me and what he saw in me, and I feel like I've grown a lot working at Screen Crush. So thank you so much for asking that question. I enjoy telling that story because it reminds me of how far I've come. And I'm usually pretty hard on myself, but I think I've done pretty okay. So yeah, thanks, man, for the question. I really do appreciate that. And yeah, that'll do it. I think that'll do it for this episode of Ask Colton. Thank you all for submitting questions. If you didn't see your question answered here on the show, maybe you'll see it answered on the next one. I apologize if your question wasn't featured. I get a lot of questions, so I try to pick what I think will be the most interesting to talk about and that I have something interesting to say about. I get a lot of great questions that I just don't have an interesting answer for. So it's usually my fault if you don't see your question featured here on the show. I'm doing my absolute best, though, that if the question is not featured on the show, I still try to respond to your email and answer your question. So, yeah, thanks so much. If you want your question answered here on the show, remember, you can go to send your question to AskColtonNow@gmail.com. All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey everybody, Colton here, and this is the mailbag style show where I take your questions about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, movies and streaming in general. Whatever you want to ask, send it in to the email address askcoltonnow@gmail.com, link in the description below. And hey, maybe you'll see your question featured right here on the show.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.